I don't think the statistical work is reliable, and I've got a few key concerns with it that relate really to how we would deal with this issue if we were doing an academic project, or even indeed a student project, not necessarily a research project. And there are some issues that you would straight off want to address. One of them is that the way the work was done in the report, it kind of attributes to connectivity all of the things that affect productivity without incorporating them in the model. So if you've got a model that's only got connectivity really as the key thing that affects productivity, you're going to attribute lots of things to connectivity that actually just happen to be correlated with it, but that aren't down to the connectivity itself. So the first issue is it doesn't deal with what's called confounding. So that's potentially a problem. The second issue is that it doesn't deal with the problem of reverse causality. What I mean by that is that we tend to put transport maybe in places that are more productive. So the relationship between productivity and transport is bidirectional. Places that are more productive tend to have better developed transport systems. Think of London, for instance. It doesn't address that problem. And I think that the third issue is that this business of what they called spreading the elasticity isn't done according to any conventional statistical approach that I can think of. The problem they had actually was a problem that's called equivalence of outcomes, where what they wanted to know is how do we apportion the connectivity effect across different modes? But the statistics wouldn't let them do it because all these things are so highly correlated. And my approach to that would be don't try and do it. It wouldn't be to try and use some strange approach to apportion or spread that effect.
They apply this statistical procedure, which really it's not a statistical procedure. I mean, that's the problem. They apply this procedure, which is essentially made up, that provides them with an estimate, and that is something that really shouldn't be being done in a situation where we're trying to inform public debate using a sort of statistical analysis.
That's a very serious allegation. You're saying they've just made it up.
If you're trying to get at the impact of something like connectivity on productivity using a set of statistical techniques, you need to play by the rules. You have to implement procedures that will give you the best chance of getting an accurate assessment of what a change in productivity will do in terms of a change of wages. And I mean, there were two problems, technical problems with what they've done, and then there's a more substantive point about the economics of it. You're pushing on the technical points. So the two technical problems were as follows. Number one, they had these 4 connectivity estimates that they couldn't separate out the individual effects on. So they looked at them one at a time. And looking at them one at a time will always bias upwards the impact of any one individual effect, because you will attribute to good rail connectivity the fact that places with good rail connectivity also have good car connectivity. So this is the problem, a technical problem of using partial correlation coefficients or univariate regressions where you should be using multivariate. So that was step one, which is a technical problem where they basically said, well, we can't separate these things out, so let's just look at them one at a time. Looking at them one at a time will bias up each of the individual effects. And then they said, well, now we've got these individual effects, how are we going to combine them? And the way they combined them is completely non-standard and further biases upwards the effect. So if you look at their report...
When you say, can you unpick the phrase non-standard for us? So what do you mean by non-standard?
Well, there is no...
creative and useful or not?
No,
we need
just
to know whether they've done something that can help us look at these sort of projects in the future.
No, I mean, you're just taking partial correlation coefficients and adding them up in the way that they did is just non-informative, I'm afraid. I mean, so that part of it that gets to the 15 billion number from the underlying partial correlation coefficients has no statistical basis. And just coming along and proposing a sort of solution that has no statistical basis really doesn't get us very far, because we have no idea how to interpret those estimates. Now,
so as a layman, I'm sorry to keep interrupting
Sure.
you, Professor Overman, but as a layman, is it right for a layman to conclude from that, well, you've got to do something, so at least they've taken this forward, and that can help us so that we can understand where the value might lie, or is this rubbish in, rubbish out?
I don't think that aspect of what they've done is at all helpful.
Professor Overman, why did you quit the HS2 panel?
Well, but actually, I felt that the change in status of HS2 from being providing independent advice to the government to being a promoter of the scheme meant that I, no longer wanted to be involved in, on a consultancy basis with them.